Alright, so welcome back to the Study Prep Guys channel, everyone. We'll be looking into the nature of economics, which is the introductory concepts as it relates to economics. This is level 1, or I would like to call it A level. So, what is economics exactly? So, economics is a social science, which means it studies society and relationships between people. Economists analyze many different aspects of human behavior and decision making within and between markets, organizations, and countries. So, that is the general gist of what economics is. So, economics is not really about money. Instead, it is about the decisions that we take in our everyday lives, from who to date, whether to buy a house, or which job to apply for. For every choice we make as individuals or as a society, there is a cost. So every choice we make comes with a cost, whether to buy a house or to apply for. For every choice we make, an individual or individuals or a society, there is a cost and a benefit. So what is it meant by? So simplify an assumption using example assume behavior of consumers and businesses. That is what economics is. It's the assumed behavior of consumers and businesses. So what does the term ceteris paribus mean, or the ceteris paribus assumption? So all other factors held constant helps isolate the impact of one factor. Example, a change in the price or income of demand. So economical agents. So economical agents usually include the consumers, producers, governments, and it generally means anyone engaged in some form of economical activity. And it falls under usually these three categories: consumers meaning everyday personnels, producers, and the government. What is an economical model? So a theoretical construct of this will basically be in building a hypothesis about behavior that could be tested, supported, amended, rejected. An economical model is just a basic predicament of what the society or, like, for example, if an economy sees consumers buying one particular product all the time, they will create an economical model of what a consumer needs and what they usually buy. So let's look at the economical problem. So this arises from the scarcity of resources. Example, limited inputs available to satisfy unlimited needs and wants. So moving back to this. So economics is a study of the allocation of scarce resources because resources are not infinite among competing uses in a way that achieves an individual, an inclusive, and sustainable progress in human development. So let's look back at other terms. So opportunity cost. The value of a choice measured in terms of the next best alternative option that is given up sacrifice. So in the case of you making a choice between, let me just add this. If you're making making a choice between bread and cheese. So if you do give up, if you give up the bread in order to purchase the cheese, um, the bread is opportunity cost. So if you give up, like for example, you give up if you bought the bread and or if you bought the cheese and you give up the bread is the opportunity cost. It is the next best choice foregone. So what is the social science? Social science is the study of humans, society, relationships, and behaviors. So it generally deals with human nature. That's what social science is. So, value judgment. A value judgment contains a normative statement concerning what ought should happen in a given situation. It's I would like to consider a value judgment as something logical or a logical statement that can be predicted. So a value judgment is like, for example, what would happen if you spend out all of your money? You will have no money. Or if you bought a lot of books, what will you have? A lot of books. A value judgment is just a statement that is in relation to everyone. Everyone knows it will happen. So that's what a value judgment is. You might ask the question, what is the difference between social science and natural science? Let's look at social science first and then we'll look back into natural science. So a social science is the studies of human behavior, dynamic and interrelationships. As I said before, it's human nature. So we don't have that established already. So that's human nature in general. So, what is normative science? Studies of the natural world, quantitative blind control experiments. It deals with, so natural science deals with the world. So one deals with human nature as it relates to humans, and one deals with the world and its concepts and its laws. So we have established that. So, what is the difference between positive and normative statements? Positive statements, these are objectives, they're testable, and they're numerical, meaning that when even repeated, it does have an accurate uh, justification. So, normative statements, these contain subjective arguments and value judgments. So, these positive statements are testable. Normative means that um, it can go wrong. For example, if you're making a statement about, for example, the market supply or markets, right? If you're making a statement about the markets or the stock of goods, and it is not testable, it is not objectifiable because it always changes, the market always crashes sometimes and everything goes wayward. So a normative statement, it can go wrong, it doesn't usually always go wrong, always goes in the incorrect passageway, but there are some cases wherein it can go right. But if you're making a positive statement, it's usually always testable, it's always objectifiable, and it's always correct. So, what's the difference between renewable and non-renewable resources? Renewable resources can be replenished or reused. Non-renewable cannot be used after it's utilized. So let's look at the difference between mean income and median income. Mean income, this is the income per head of population. Median income is middle part of an income distribution. 50% are below and 50% are above. These are what we consider to be the different classes of society. 50% being below below that below that standard of being extremely wealthy, and another 50% being above that standard of wealth, meaning that they are actually wealthy. So what is meant by the term capital goods? Capital goods, these are tangible assets such as buildings, machinery, equipment, vehicles, and tools that are used to produce other goods and services. So consumer goods, these are bought and consumed by households to satisfy current wants or needs. We have economical decline. This is a contraction in the value of output per shown by a negative rate of real GDP growth in a recession. These are usually time of poor economical activity in an economy. So these are usually time of poor economical activity. So an economical growth is a long-term increase in a country's productive capacity and capability shown by real national output. And let's look at the term efficient allocation of resources, or ALC, I like to call it. This just might, I just like to use terms like this to make it more easier for myself. ALC, ELC, I'm saying ALC. It's actually ELC. Efficient allocation of resources. This is the combination of scarce inputs and outputs such that any change in economy can make some better off only by making some worse off. And this is the Pareto efficiency, meaning that if you're doing effective allocation of resources, there is a lot more benefiting than a lot more losses, I would like to say. So if you have a population of 3 million and you're doing effective allocation of resources, um, probably one two thirds of that population is getting benefits, probably around 1.9, and the other thousand or whatever remains are not benefiting to that extent. However, it would be worse if you are doing ineffective allocation of resources, wherein probably only a million would benefit and the other million would not benefit. So that's what you consider to be the Pareto efficiency concept in economics. So infrastructure, this is very basic. This includes all physical capital such as transport networks, energy, power, and water supply, and also telecommunication networks. Let's look at the PPF. We consider to be the PPF, or the possibility um production possibility frontier, the PPF I like to call it. It's a lot of other economists call it the PPF, production possibility frontier. This is a combination of two or more products that can be supplied using all available inputs efficiently. And then we have some other terms such as the production potential. This shows a maximum limits to output. Capacity can be defined as the maximum output that a business can produce in a given period with available resources. We have a trade off. A trade off arises when having more of one thing potentially results in having less of another. The balance between two desirable outcomes where both are not achievable. So, let me explain this. So, a trade off is when we want to produce two of these. We want to have two products. We want to have two products within our economies, but we can't do it because they are unachievable at the moment. But we want to have it. So unemployment, these are the people of working age who are willing, able, and available to take paid work, but who do not currently have a job. Right? So unemployment, you don't have a job. That's about it. And advantages from competition between suppliers in a free market economical system. Competition drives prices down for consumers, leading to higher real income. It stimulates. So, if the price of a good or service goes down, the demand for it will increase because consumers can now actually buy it. Competition will ensure that firms move toward productive efficiency. Ways in which markets may fail to achieve an efficient allocation of scarce resources. When one or more firms have monopoly power and charge higher prices, this is when monopoly is a form of economics or a form of economy or a form of business, I would like to say, where there is one sole producer of a good and they have leverage in um in economies of scale, meaning that they could set the price ceiling. When consumers have imperfect information and making choices, they pay extremely high for products and goods that they're being ripped off in a general sense. When production and dash or consumption leads to external costs and benefits. um so these are some of the cases whereby, just think it, where ineffective or inefficient allocation of, or these are some of the areas they fail to actually make allocation of resources efficient as possible. Let's look at some key features of the command plant economy. And you don't really have a say within the plant economy. You don't really have any says. Resources are largely state owned, i.e., through nationalized industries. The government determines which products are to be supplied. Market prices play little or no part in informal resource allocation decisions. And there are a lot of problems. Like, for example, we have the example of a planned economy in communist China. This is a perfect example of a planned economy. Problems with centrally planning the allocation of resources. Government agencies usually have poor information about what to produce or rely too heavily on political priorities rather than using market forces. Inefficient firms, state-owned enterprises, are protected and kept going, making it hard for scarce resources to make to move to dynamic and efficient forms. Price controls invariably lead to shortages and surplus. Centrally, planners are unable, dash unwilling, to respond quickly to changing needs and wants of the citizens. Key rules for the state government in a mixed economy. A mixed economy is where there's a mixture of public sectors and private sectors, or public businesses, or private portions businesses and state-owned businesses. So that providing public goods that private sectors suppliers might be able to use taxes and subsidies to change market prices and redistribute income and wealth, regulate industries when there is a need for consumer protection, example, to counterbalance the monopoly power of large-scale businesses. Um, when there is a mixture of public and private sectors, monopolies don't really have that leverage that they usually have, because another firm will produce the good that they are producing over a period of time, and they will have competition, and that changes the business into a perfect competition, or an imperfect competition business. So functions of money, this is very simple. It's a medium of exchange, store of value, and standard of deferred payment. Anyways, this is everything for economics today. This is an introduction to economics, all the terms or the nature of economics, the first part of the CSEC syllabus. This is the introductory concepts. Yes, that is everything for now.